Hello, everybody. I'm Mandy Rodstrom, a recent recovering covert stutterer, I like to say. I'm excited to share more about that here shortly. As I shared earlier, I am located in the DC area, but I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio. I just moved here with my family last summer. I spent 19 years in the public school as a speech language pathologist, but I had a calling that I answered the end of last year where I transitioned to starting my own private practice, specializing in stuttering, and also in teaching graduate students all about stuttering at multiple universities, and also some clinical supervision in the area of stuttering. So currently I'm an adjunct professor at James Madison University. Yeah, I think that's all about me for now. I'll pass it over to Carl.
Thank you, Mandy, and thank you, Pam. Hey, everybody. My name is Carl Coffey. I am a person who stutters, and I live in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I'm originally from Richmond, Virginia, but have called Bowling Green home for the past 7 years. Um, and let's see, I work as a business process advisor within the healthcare operations industry. And so when everyone asks what that is, I always say I help, you know, businesses to look at their processes, see what they're doing currently, any ways that their work is inefficient, and ways that we can improve it and make it better for a better overall experience. Did I think I would be doing this when I was 5 years old? Absolutely not, but that's life for you. Um, let's see, I've been involved in the NSA since about 2013 when I went to my first chapter meeting. I was really early in my career, and I just remembered being really nervous because I was going to have to present more in meetings, and I was terrified at the thought of anyone hearing me stutter. And so I really sought out the NSA as a way to just meet other people who stuttered, figure out what other people were doing, how they were coping, and I really found a really welcoming community, and I've been involved ever since. And it's been a really great journey for me. Personally, I am married. I've been married for 5 years, and my wife Brittany and I, we have four animals. We are currently fostering two kittens as well. So that's it's a very busy time in our household. All right. Without any further ado, I'm going to jump into sharing, and we will get started with our kind of presentation of what we have to show you guys for tonight. All right. Can someone just give me a thumbs up to make sure that you can hear or you can see my screen? Perfect. Okay, so the super long title is probably my doing. I just was really excited because as a few of you may know, we had a covert we had a co we had a covert stuttering event a couple of months ago. And this was kind of a part two because we wanted to explore that a bit more. And so this is kind of a continuation of that. I always like to start with kind of grounding the conversation. And so we're going to be talking about covert stuttering tonight. Just kind of a brief show of hands. Does anyone know what covert stuttering is? Has anyone heard that phrase or term before? Okay, well, we are going to learn together. All right, a quick a quick definition of what covert stuttering is. It really is a practice where a person who stutters, they try their best to conceal their stuttering, to try and hide it from other people. And they do this for a number of reasons, which include, they want to avoid negative reactions. They don't want to be embarrassed, or they don't want to be perceived as less than because they stutter. Um, and I think that this picture, um, it really kind of captures that concept well. This picture is from the account Just Stutter, and I just think that it is a really cool kind of way to articulate the experience that a lot of us have, where we've tried our best to hide our stutter, right? We, don't want the world to know that we stutter, and so we do these things, these tricks, these practices where we try our best to hide it, and we think that we're being fluent. I thought that I was being a great, like hider for a long time, but you may have people that are kind of like this person here that's like, what's going on there? Like, something's in the background. I don't quite know what's going on. So we will kind of talk about our own journeys as well tonight, and kind of talk about the things that we have gone through over time and how we've tried to conceal and hide. And we also look forward to hearing from y'all as well about your journeys and experiences. All right. So now we're going to talk about why people conceal. So there is a lot of really good research about covert stuttering and concealment. And one of the and there was and there was there was and there was some research that was done. Some research that was done by Hope Gerlach Hauk in 2021 about this topic. And she gave three kind of main reasons about why people conceal. The first reason she gave is about is about is about accessibility. And that's basically, you want to be sure that you're included in stuff. You don't want to like miss out on you don't want to miss out on opportunities. And so, that might be a reason why you choose to conceal. Another is you do it as a way to protect yourself, because as we know, stuttering can be very isolating, and may do it to protect ourselves uh, from we do it as a way to protect ourselves from both the stigma and the judgment that we might receive. Another reason people might conceal is because a way to it's a way to maintain the social norm. We know we know that fluency is the norm. Not many people in the grand scheme of things stutter. And so the world kind of expects us to be fluent. And so we just really want to kind of like follow that flow and don't want to disrupt the norm. Now we're going to talk about, what does this actually look like? And I am going to pass it over to Mandy, and she's gonna share with us.
Thank you, Carl. Yeah, and so what Hope did, her research, so Dr. Gerlach, how she was able to come up with themes in the areas of concealment. So for example, and I'm really excited to hear if this starts to kind of resonate with you, like, oh, that's what that is. So hopefully this, Carl and I really hope that maybe this is going to shed a light on your experience, and maybe it's I know for me it was very internal. It was something that I did. It was just very mainly just something I did automatically. I didn't know, but I mean it was outwardly too, but it was like, oh, that's what that's called. That's why I did that. So hopefully this will be giving you some vocabulary or understanding around it. So For the linguistic kind of concealment, that would be like abandoning words, changing word order, restarting what you were going to say, or restricting your word choice, maybe avoiding those words that you know that you always stutter on. Filler words, those are my favorite, and I still do those today. But filler words, word substitutions, or even saying fewer words. So limiting the amount of words that you say. As for situational concealment or reasons why we conceal, that would be avoiding stressful speaking situations in general, not even approaching those opportunities to do any public speaking per se. I know that was a big one for me at work. I avoided any chance to get up in front of the school or staff. I never did that. Exiting a social situation because there's a lot of pressure, people are talking, people just skipping out, not attending social events, manipulating position and physical space. So, like, especially, I don't know about you guys, but in school, I would, back in the 80s and 90s, I know I'm aging myself, but we did a lot of round robin reading, and I would count myself, and I would always try to like get out of, because I knew I was going to be up and after 10 students. So like, oh, how do I get out of here so I don't have to speak? And then skipping work and school events too. That's another way. And then next we have pragmatic. So that's kind of like closed body language. So people don't like naturally, or people might naturally think, okay, they don't want to talk. I'm not going to start a conversation with them because they're closed off. Um, Interrupting, that's something that I learned about. I was like, oh my gosh, I do. I tend to interrupt. And it's not because I'm rude, but it's like, okay, if I get this out fluently, I'll be okay. So I would tend to interrupt people. Um, Involving others, like having other people kind of finish what you want to say, saying less or not speaking at all, not initiating conversation, not asking questions in conversation. And then next we have what Carl had mentioned, that self-presentation, right? Survival, essentially. So adopting a role of a fluent speaker, that's one of the things. And fibbing, telling a lie. I did that a lot too. Like, oh, um, back to the school situation. I can't talk. I have a sore throat. I lied. I totally lied, but it was total survival mode. I wasn't going to read out loud in class. Intense prep. How many of you, I'm curious, like how often, how many hours did you prepare for that presentation or that work presentation, school presentation? How many hours did you put in that and memorizing and doing it over and over? And I'm asking that just like, in general, and we can certainly share out here in a few minutes. Restricting self from interests, those authentic, those things inside you love and adore, but you don't participate in or you don't show up to because I can't do that because I stutter. One of the biggest things I always dreamed of as a child was being in musical theater, but I never tried out for plays in high school. There was no way I was going to get a part, right? No way. And sometimes, too, another form of self-presentation is substance abuse. Hope had found that in her research. So, again, survival. And lastly, we have speaking mechanics. So, what we do with how we speak. So, altering use of facial muscles, adjusting intonation, like going up at the end or going down at the end, adjusting our rate, our volume. I notice, and even now I'm working on slowing down when I talk, not to be fluent, but because I'm rushing to get my speech out, because it's like I just want to get this over with. I have to get it out. Moving non-facial body parts, so maybe a foot, a hand, or pausing, doing a lot, taking a breath. Those are other forms as well. So yeah, we'll pause here. And I think, Carl, I think we have a slide or a second here, you guys can share if
We
any of these
do.
resonate with you.
We do. And I just put it in the chat, Mandy, as you were speaking, like how many of these resonate with you? Like as you were going through the list, I'm just thinking in my head, like, wow, I have probably done all of these in some way, shape, or form. Like, you know, it kind of made me wish that I had a like bingo card of all of the different behaviors because I would definitely like fill the screen,
Right.
fill my entire card. And,
Same.
and and it seems like a lot of people agree. Like we've all, done these just as a way to kind of like preserve ourselves. And I really like how you said, we didn't do it maybe because we were like trying to be rude or anything, but it's just really an act of preserving ourselves.
Right.
So I think that is so true. All right.
Thank you.
We have a question for you guys. So feel free to either put in the chat or even come off of mute. I'm just curious to know what is the most interesting thing that you've done to conceal your stutter? And to give folks some time, I can start off with one. I remember I went to Chick-fil-A once and I loved Chick-fil-A. The one thing I don't like about Chick-fil-A is that if you're ordering either in the drive-through or you go in the store, the first thing they always ask you is, "Can I have a name for the order?" And I don't know about y'all, but saying my name is always the hardest thing. And so, not even thinking, I said, "Oh, my name's Mark." And I just blurted it out. And so, like I stood off to the side, I was waiting for my food, and I realized an awful long time had passed. And I was like getting impatient because I'd seen people who had ordered after me and they were getting their food and I hadn't got mine. And so, I went to the manager and I was like, "Hey, I've been waiting for my food for forever." And the manager's like, "Oh, well, what was the name for the order?" And then I realized, oh crap, I gave them the wrong name. They probably had been calling out this name that I gave them and I'd forgotten about. And so, yeah, that probably is one of the most interesting things I've done, just as a way to not stutter, as a way to appear fluent, because I didn't want to embarrass myself or make it awkward for the cashier, things like that. So it looks like it looks like Alistair is raising their hand, and if I mispronounce your name, please correct me.
Yeah, you said it right. So again, like the similar thing to you. So John is my title name, and if I meet new people, I kind of sometimes say that's my name, and that that makes it easier for me to say it. And I don't feel too bad doing that because John is my like name. It's just not the first name. But yeah, like same thing with you.
Thank you for sharing. I know a lot. I've heard many stories of people going up to the barista at Starbucks telling them a different name too. So I know it's a very common experience in our stuttering community. Yeah, and just adding, as Carl was saying, our names are one of the hardest things to say, and that was something I learned early too. Was when I introduced myself as Mandy, stutter on the M, and it would come out Andy. And as a kid, people would laugh or they would say, "Did you forget your name?" I'm sure many of us have heard that too in here. And I just learned very early on, well, wait, what if I say Amanda? Oh, so there we go. And I kind of now looking back, I think that's when I stepped into that covert identity of like, I need to hide this thing because it was just an awful feeling inside how people would react. And so yeah, and then I would sometimes use an accent. I learned too when I talked in a British accent, I wouldn't stutter, so sometimes I would get into that too. So just to share that.
but it also sounds super cool to speak in a British accent. And your British
Right.
accent was fantastic. So
Thanks, Carl.
yeah, and I mean, just reading in the chat, so many people are sharing, and I feel like their experiences that are that really are universal to a lot of us. I'm looking at Victoria. She said,
Yes.
sometimes I pretend like I forget what I'm trying to say, so I'll start to think, or I'll say and I definitely have done this. I've been in conversation with friends where we're talking about a cool TV show, and I'm like, oh, what's the name of that? Oh my gosh, I can't think of the name of that guy in the thing. When I know who the guy in the thing is, but I just don't want to stutter, and so I'll just try to pretend or get someone to finish my thought. And I wonder if a lot of you feel this way, where if those tricks we do, it kind of, because they'll work, it kind of becomes second nature. We don't even realize that we're doing it because it kind of just becomes baked into our behavior.
Right.
And I think that's when it kind of becomes tough.
Right, Carl. And I appreciate couple other people like Karen had shared. I tend to laugh. I to hide my stutter. I can relate that. It's like that, starting laughing would help me get through that moment of stuttering or hide it. So I can totally relate to that one too. And um Juana, sharing, and I do apologize if I said your name incorrectly, but having your parents order your food. Oh my gosh, I can remember so many times having my mom and dad do that, or my spouse. I can relate to that, Samuel. Um, Work meetings. Yep. Knowing introductions. Oh my gosh, I don't know. Anybody else, your heart just races when introductions, it's time for those. Yeah.
Mhm.
Escaping that.
Yeah, wow. Well, this was just kind of the first opportunity for us to kind of all chat and share. Mandy and I are going to go through our own stories and our own journeys a little bit, and then we're going to open it up towards the end and have more of an open discussion where we can all share. But before we do that, I see that Alex has his hand up, so I want to give the floor to Alex.
Hi there. Thank you so much. I just want to say, for all these things that are being listed here, it's just making me anxious in a good way, in a validating way, to know that I'm not the only person that goes through all of these things. And I saw that somebody, I think it's Carmel, just mentioned the thing that I was going to say, which I've been wanting to say, which is that I always, as I'm speaking, when I know that I'm going to trip up on a word, I'll find a substitute for that word, which, it was just yesterday that I saw this definition of covert stuttering, and I never really knew what it was until yesterday and now today, and it just resonates with me so much. So yeah, I really appreciate you doing this presentation, so that I can, try to improve with this. And yeah, I just want to say that I'm finding it very interesting.
We're glad you're here, Alex. Very.
Well, thank you for sharing, Alex. And I think that's a great segue into kind of Mandy and I talking about our own personal journeys and our stories. So I'll start off, and I decided to include some embarrassing pictures, and I prompted Mandy to include some of her own as well. But I'm gonna to kind of talk about my journey, as I guess throughout my life, and kind of how I've grown with my stutter and kind of how it's changed over time. So we'll start off with the first picture. I think I was about 3 years old in this picture. And I don't think I was formally diagnosed as a person who stutters until I was in kindergarten. And I went through speech therapy all through elementary, middle, and high school. But I remember the first time that I really recognized that I was different was the speech therapist. She came to pull me out of class, and I went back, in her office to go and work with her. And, we really just talked, and she got me to like read from a passage while she recorded my speech. And I remember going back to class, and my friends were like, hey, where'd you go? Like, who was that lady? And that was the first time that I really remembered kind of, oh, like I'm different. something's going on here. But aside from that, I was pretty aloof. I was talkative. I was mostly unaware of my stutter until it became was brought to my attention. Um, then at age 12, when I was in middle school, I was a little bit older, and I was a nerdy and socially awkward kid, which I am a nerdy, socially awkward adult. So not much has changed. But as a kid, I think I knew that in order to be accepted and in order to kind of be in with the cool crowd, I wanted to do my best to hide my stutter. And so I kind of would try to do anything to take the attention away from my stutter. So I became kind of a class clown, much to what my parents hated. But I just wanted people to laugh with me and not at me. And so I just, I talked a lot in class. I joked. And, over time, I think I just developed that part of my personality, which I think became a kind of defense mechanism for me as a way to just, like keep my stuttering as limited as I possibly could and just not talk about it. Definitely did not want to talk about it, didn't want to bring it up. And I remember if I had a friend that was like, hey, what'd you say? Or did you stutter? I'd be like, no, what are you talking about? Like I just tried my best to distance that part of it from myself. Um, Fast forward to when I was in college. I think this was my 21st birthday, which is why I was wearing a tiara, which is got cut off from this picture. But I remember back in college, I was heavy on avoidance behaviors. And I viewed my stutter with such an unhealthy amount of shame, and I was deeply covert. And I did my best to hide it. And I thought I was doing a pretty good job most days. I remember my first job out of college was a sales job, and I was still very much covert. Was able to get through the interview with the panel. If I could do anything well, I was a charming person because I always try to take the attention away from myself. I've always been really good at asking people about themselves, trying my best to like limit me sharing information about myself. And people are normally like, oh, wow, Carl's such a great listener, which a lot of people who stutter, we are, right? Because we have to be. We maybe don't like to be as outgoing or, share much about ourselves. And so we kind of are more observant, and it will work out in our favor. Well, I was very much covert, and I remember I was like, okay, I got this job, cool. What I then came to realize was that a lot of my job was picking up the phone, cold calling people, which thinking about it just made me stutter even more. Just the thought of having to try and sell people stuff was just anxiety producing. And I remember I would wake up in the middle of the night in like a nervous cold sweat because I'm thinking about the next day at work. And it just became a way that I knew I did not want to live. And so I quit that job. And I thought that I was going to do something where I'd never talk to people ever again. And then my parents quickly reminded me that I had just gotten a college degree. I was going to have to do something and not just like mope around and feel like badly for myself. And so I got a job doing something that was so bizarre that I never in a million years could have foreseen I would do. I got a job in a call center as a bill collector. Like, what in the heck kind of torture would I, put myself through? But it actually became one of the best jobs I've ever had because the kind of thing that our team liked to do, they gave everyone a mirror that we put in our cubicle. And they always said the customer can hear you smiling through the phone, which I thought was the most annoying corporate BS in the world, but it forced me to actually, for the first time, look at myself while I was talking and confront my stutter head on. And I definitely had days of disfluency. I definitely had people comment while I was trying to help them to say, "What? I can't hear you. Your phone's breaking up. Are you there?" And that was annoying. But I realized the more that I did it, the more that I continued on, I realized I did not die. Was I exhausted at the end of the day? Hell yeah, I was. Like, I was exhausted, but it made me realize that I could do hard things. And it kind of put me on the current trajectory that I am now, where I'm in calls all day, I'm talking to people, I'm having to sell ideas and say, hey, I think we should do it this way because XYZ, or no, have we considered doing this? And, I kind of was forced to do that. And so that kind of taught me confronting your fears is difficult, but you keep doing it, you keep showing up, and you will surprise yourself. And now I'm 36 and I talk about stuttering a lot. I mean, here I am. We're talking about stuttering right now. And so, it's something that I never would have thought at age 12 I'd be doing. But I'm so open now. I still stutter. I've stuttered tonight and I will stutter tomorrow, I think the difference is that I don't have any more shame about it. I still have times where I get anxious and I'm self-conscious before I'm meeting new people, wondering what they'll think about me when I stutter on my name. But I think now I've gotten to the point where I'm like, hey, stuttering is a part of me. Just like I am a person who is left-handed, I'm a person who plays pickleball, not very well, but it's just a part of me. And I think that journey that I've taken has gotten me to this point. So that's a little bit about my journey. And I'm excited to pass it over to Mandy so that she can share her fun pictures and talk about her journey as well.
Oh, thank you, Carl. Your journey. Yeah. So similar to Carl, at the age of 6, I was taken to, or I was diagnosed with stuttering. One of my first memories of speech therapy was being a little girl and my mom taking me to the local hospital and her meeting this man in a white lab coat and him taking me off in the back, clinic room and waving bye to my mom, just like, what am I doing here? And him telling me to squeeze my hand and put it in my pocket and squeeze my hand while I spoke. And just remember being filled with, this is feeling weird, but I guess I have to do this because there's something wrong with how I talk. And I also, my father stuttered as a child, and he had lived with the experience of this is something that we cure and we get over, and so he was very. I now understand why he did what he did, and I know he was frustrated because I think he was afraid of me and a struggle that I would face with stuttering, but he would yell at me if I stuttered, and he would tell me to use my strategy. So I do like to say I feel like I experienced stuttering as trauma, and it just wasn't something ever safe in my body to do. And so, just like those things that we talked about earlier, self-preservation, gosh, I had to work very hard to make sure I didn't do that, and not only at home, but and plus, my parents weren't told anything else from my speech therapist. They were just told to make sure that she goes upstairs and does her exercises and does her fluency shaping techniques and keeps trying harder, right? And so that's a big missing piece, I think. Like that just kind of added to that was it just wasn't a supportive home environment. And then going to school, I remember, like I shared earlier, a lot of those round robin reading situations, just panicking and trying to get out of the classroom. But then also having, Carl, you had mentioned having the SLP come and get me and just feeling like, oh yeah, I'm different. I have to go with her. Everyone's watching. And for me, I was considered a mild stutterer. And so I probably around age 15, this next slide, this next picture, that was when I was dismissed from speech therapy because I did a really good job. Now I understand it, hiding it. They taught me, my speech therapist actually taught me how to hide my stuttering really well with the fluency shaping. And I just, those strategies never worked when I needed them to work though either, because I was still grappling and trying to come off as a confident speaker, but I never did feel that way. I did a lot of, like Carl, I relate to what you're saying, very friendly, just overly accommodating to people, such a good listener, people pleaser. I think some of those other characteristics came in because I just was trying to make up for such, inadequacy. I felt that, that self-stigma, the stigma I received from the world that I was living in, right? A fluent world, a world that demanded that I be fluent. So it was just always this shame-filled, insecure, but so nice and friendly and good student, right? But I was never doing enough, though. There was always something else that I just wasn't adding up to when it came to speaking. And then, ironically, I went to college to be a music teacher, but fate had other plans for me. I became a speech pathologist, and it all had to do with watching a video the first day of class, and it showed this little girl who stuttered, and I just started crying. I'm like, this is what I'm meant to do. But unfortunately, my college experience added to that covertness. It added to my professors telling me that I should brush up on my skills and get some more speech therapy, do some more fluency shaping, because you don't want to, you want to be fluent in front of your clients if you're going to be helping people. That kind of message was sent to me. And so I went even as far to get a speech easy for some of those, for any of you out there who may know, but it was a device. I think, I'm not sure if it's still being sold out there or marketed. I think it might be, but it's like a hearing aid with that uses delayed auditory feedback to help you be more fluent. And I was like, I got this. Now I can go and get a job. And I got my first job in the schools around this age here, 25 years old. And I was like, I'm going to be awesome. Yeah. And that thing lasted about a few weeks. I hated it. It was so annoying. It amplified all the background noise. It was more taxing on my cognitive load than just trying to use strategies. It was just like adding just more pressure. And I just said, this has to stop. And I know, I think I realized that was probably the first steps of saying, maybe, to embrace your stuttering. Maybe that was the beginning of the acceptance. But, and then right around a few years after COVID, I had this whisper that was like, this is getting old. You're 40 some years old. You've been doing this job for 18, 17 years. Why are you still feeling like you're not enough and not good enough? And then I realized, oh my gosh, this is related to your stuttering and how you're not like being your true self. And can we just get out of this? Like it was this feeling that I had this, I was in this clothing that just didn't fit anymore. Like this or a cage that I was in that I just wanted to break free. And that was like when I began to seek out trauma-informed stuttering therapy. That was a game changer for me, where I was provided a space where I could, uh, you know, um, play with my stutter, talk about all those memories and feelings and unpack, unearth, I like to say too, unpack, unearth all of that um, internal loneliness, this whole life, this unknowing, and then just to have a speech therapist that specialized in this and then help give me that vocabulary and get to heal those parts of me that were saying like, you can't do this, you're not good enough, you can't stutter, and then like to learn how to um, disclose in a non-apologetic way. That was life-changing. And to be connected to the community. I'm proud to say I am now a co-chapter leader of the NSA DC Family Chapter, I should say. So that's been wonderful getting connected to NSA. And even going to get to see the stuttering art installation that's pictured here at Whitney. That was just a moment of like, wow, I'm here. I'm finally like kind of like going back home, being who I was born to be on this earth and speaking how I speak and stuttering. And so it's just been extremely life-changing. So I'm excited to hear about you all.
Awesome. Thank you, Mandy. And
Yeah.
I feel like so many people, myself included, related to so much of what you were saying. I know Carmel put in the chat, I can relate to so much of what you were saying, Mandy. So it's so interesting how we all have these unique journeys and experiences, but we share so many of the same feelings and just things we go through, which I think is telling because stuttering can be really isolating and you can feel like you're alone and nobody can possibly understand or get it. But there's so many shared experiences. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment and we're going to open it up and kind of have more of the discussion based part of, the event. Just curious to hear from y'all. Is there anything maybe we said that's resonated with you or any experiences that you've had that maybe you want to share? And you can either put in the chat or feel free to use the raise hand feature on Zoom, which I see Jeremiah has. So I know that we've got two folks. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Jeremiah first. And then after Jeremiah goes, Elliot, you can share.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremiah. I'm a person who stutters wise. So, yeah, something that resonated with me was like when the SOP would pull you guys out of your classrooms, and then and then both of you guys would go to like speech class. Well, for me, I was embarrassed, so I would pretend to grab like a tissue, like how, like when you had to blow your nose, like you had to step outside back in the elementary school. So I would do that, then just take my speech pass, like go down to the special education room wise, but I'll just like use the tissue and just like pretend like I had to blow my nose for like 30 minutes wise. And mind you, we was in elementary school, so people didn't like really like ask like where you went though, but it's just like I had to just reflect now because like I just graduated last year from college wise. I'm 26, so it's just like how I just like thinking, just like reflecting. I was like, oh yeah, that's something that I did too. I was just like, quote unquote, kind of like sneak out wise though. So it's like, yeah, that resonated with me having the SOP, like the speech language pathology. I'm pulling you out of your I'm pulling you out of your classroom doing like the recess on lunchtime. So yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been great so far.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremiah. Being pulled out of class to go to speech therapy, I feel like that is kind of like a common experience that to me always feels like it felt like it was really scary. But one quick story I'll share, and then I'll pass it over to Elliot. My wife, she's a teacher. She was a kindergarten teacher for a few years, and now she's a first grade teacher. And I went to her class to volunteer one day, and one of her students was in speech, and the speech pathologist had pulled him out very quickly, and his other classmates were doing activities, and one of his friends asked, like, "Hey, where did hey where did Josue go?" And I was like, "Oh, he went out to speech therapy." And the kid was just like, "Oh, okay, cool, because I just missed him and I wanted to know when he was coming back." It wasn't like a big thing. They didn't, ask questions or be like, "Oh, that's weird." They were just like, "Okay, cool." And it just kind of reinforced to me that like kids are, I feel like, really pure and well-meaning, and to us, it's always such a big deal. You know, I don't know if you guys felt this way, but to me, my stuttering was always the thing, and people were going to define me by the fact that I stuttered, or people would be offended by it, or judge me by it. And I realized that I always put so much pressure on myself more than anyone else would. So yeah. All right, I'm gonna stop talking because I love to yap, and I'm gonna hand it over to Elliot so you can share.
How's it going, everyone? First and foremost, thank you both to Carl and Mandy for hosting this and sharing both of your stories. I definitely resonate with a lot of that. But the one thing that really stood out was Mandy, that was the first time that I've ever heard of trauma-informed stuttering therapy. So whatever you have the time, I would love to hear you more about what that involves. How is that different from regular stuttering therapy, and what the outcomes are hoped for, and things like that.
Thank you, Elliot. Yeah, I would love just a little. I could probably have a whole other session, but really was how reactive I was, or what that message was, a lifelong of avoidance, of chronic fight or flight or freeze around that moment of stuttering, and the disassociating, the ruminating, the just that having that experience and being able to convey that. And the speech pathologist asked me, is that common for you after, during, before a moment of stuttering? What would you do? And so she shared, and I actually had learned about trauma-informed practices at the school district I had worked at. So I was like, oh my gosh, there's trauma around this, because my body, my nervous system, my heart rate, I'm escaping. I'm not mentally or physically, I'm in that room, but my mind is somewhere else. I'm escaping during this moment because of that perceived threat. It is so high. So my reactivity to that. And so what trauma-informed stuttering therapy, it was very at the pace of me is what at the pace of the client. So just really going slow, not forcing me to do any type of pseudo stuttering right away. It was just really kind of getting into my body, because I was so much not in my body around stuttering. I was always escaping to survive. And so getting into my body, getting grounded, really kind of getting in touch with those thoughts and feelings that had been stored in my body around stuttering. Getting to slowly practice like playfully, very pseudo stuttering was a part of that had never been part of my therapeutic journey before. Just learning, like I said, learning the words, the vocabulary, and then getting to discover what my natural speaking is, what my voice is. And then ultimately it was a lot of avoidance reduction therapy. Arts, as some of us know it as, was very helpful, because I was able to get curious and figure out, what am I doing instead of stuttering? What am I doing? And so unpacking that, and it's just very slow and safe, and a lot of space for reflection, a lot of tears, in my case, a lot of letting those younger versions of Mandy say what has been so internalized my whole life. And so yeah, I guess I could go on another 25 an hour maybe, but I hope that's helpful, Elliot. And I have my email. We can always chat after the meet too. Thank you.
Okay, I think that Samuel was next, and after Samuel, we'll have Maddie.
Hi everyone, I'm Samuel. It's nice to meet everyone. I'm a person who stutters. I have been a stutterer all my life. So I would say that my journey really. I basically tried speech therapy maybe twice. Would have been at the age of maybe 6 or 7. And then afterwards, maybe in my 20s, right? So I would say my experience with speech therapy, you go to speech therapy and then it works at speech therapy, and then afterwards, when you leave, maybe a couple of weeks after, you kind of revert to how you speak before, right? So it didn't work for me as well as I wanted, right? So also I would say in my 20s, I also tried the speech easy device. So I would say so I I I grew up I, I grew up in Trinidad, so I use this so I use the speech easy device, but it's very humid there, so it it doesn't it's very difficult to use there, right? So but I would say no. At 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 the age of 50, I think I'm I'm happy with who I am. I stutter openly, and I I, I have accepted that. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Samuel. It's just so wonderful to hear, and I'm so happy that you are, I can only imagine how like annoying that was, just like you were saying, like the humidity and hot and having to mess around with that. So thank you for sharing that. It's so real. Just one more thing, really, that it's just so frustrating, but I'm so happy that you found happiness and acceptance. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo what Mandy said. Thank you for sharing, Samuel. And I'm glad that at 50 you found the point where you're like, you know what? This is who I am. And I'm happy with that. It reminds me of the phrase, and I'm gonna mess it up, so I gotta think about it. Those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter. My dad used to tell me that all the time. And the people who love you and care about you are going to care about you and love you regardless of how you sound and how you speak. So thank you for sharing. Okay, Maddie, you're next, and then after Maddie, we'll have Britt share.
Hello, I'm Maddie. I'm definitely a covert stutterer. So this is my first steps on trying to be more open and speak. So that's why I'm trying to speak tonight. So yay. I struggle right now at my new job. So I have been training, and now I'm starting to do how you were. You made a phone calls, and it's so frustrating because people, like you said, you're breaking up, and I just get so frustrated. And how did you deal with that frustration and not being mad at yourself? I'm struggling with that a lot because it's like every time I'm on the phone and I just don't know how to not get frustrated with myself.
Yeah, that is very real, Maddie. I think that the first thing I would say is just to keep showing up. Um, I, as a covert person, would try my best to hide. And I found that even if I would be able to get through one hurdle and be able to hide, hide successfully, that fear would kind of keep like mounting on me, and it would just make it inevitably more difficult. So I would say keep showing up. And I know I say this all the time, and it sounds so easy, but in theory, it's so hard. Start to disclose your stutter with people. So maybe you have like a coworker you trust, and maybe you just bring it up in conversation. I would find that if I was having a really difficult day, I would try my best to just make fun of it. And I'd be like, "Ooh, man, my stutter is just on one today," and I would try my best to make it lighthearted so that, I could just be like, "Hey, it's a thing that happens." But I found that the more okay I got talking about it, the more I was able to speak without as much struggle. For me, I found that I was having a lot of struggle because I was trying to hide and just, I found that I would still stutter, but I would allow myself to stutter easier because I'm like, okay, they know I stutter. And that gave me kind of permission to give myself the ability to stutter, which I don't think I previously had done. And so, yeah, I would just say, if you want to maybe try it with someone you trust, maybe like, friends or coworkers, and then just, build up to maybe when you're on the phone with someone. The most liberating thing I think I said to someone, I was like, hey, yeah, I can hear you just fine. I have a stutter, and so if you just give me a moment to get it out, that'd be great. And most people, they don't know, and so they'll be like, oh, okay, cool. I remember I did have one person who was a complete jerk, and they were like, well, get me someone who can talk to me. And then I remember I transferred them to a coworker, and they transferred them right back to me, so it's just like, you're gonna have to get through me to get
Oh,
whatever you need to get done, and so I thought that was cool because I had someone who was able to support me and was in my corner. But I think you being here tonight, and you continuing to show up for yourself is big.
thank you.
All
Okay,
right.
Carl, I just wanted
Brett.
to, I know our queue, sorry to interrupt. I know Brett's next, but I know Carmel had mentioned that she would like to join. So, and
Okay.
then John, hope you don't mind, John. Thank you.
Awesome. So we're gonna have Brent, and then I think right before John, there was another person who said that their raise hand feature wasn't working, and so I think it was Alex. And so we're gonna have Brent, Alex, John, and then Carmel.
Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Brett.
Like, as many of us, I was a co 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 covert stutterer for many years, meaning I would basically like hide, just I would like avoid any opportunities that I would have to talk, and I also have experience with it, delayed auditory devices as well. But the breakthrough for 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 me has been this community, because I started attending uh, 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 attending my local chapter last year, and it has been the best experience ever.
Oh, Brett, I totally echo you. I'm so happy for you. What a beautiful point to make. Getting connected to the stuttering community is just so critical, right? It's just such a huge piece of the acceptance journey, and I just
Yes,
that.
yes.
Thank you,
So,
Brett.
oh,
Appreciate that. We're gonna go to Alex next, and then we'll go to John, and then Carmel.
Hey,
John
again, thank
or
you. So
Alex, take it away.
Yep. So last time I didn't introduce myself. So my name is Alex. I'm a person that stutters, and I have a job which stressed me out a lot before I started it. I am a high school English teacher, and I coach basketball. I coach boxing, and very much somebody that when I'm speaking to a large group of people about something that I am knowledgeable about, I can be very fluent. And this kind of has been validating me on the fact that I am a covert stutterer. But get me at a table with five people that I don't know so well, and it's a big struggle for me. And one thing that's been a topic of conversation amongst several people is just this idea of disclosing that you are a person that stutters. And this is something that I had done in the past on my first day of each year, the first class. I state, these cool things that I do. And then I kind of, on the next slide, state that, things are not always as they appear. I am a person and I have flaws like everybody else. And I put in the fact that I have ADHD, that I have a stutter. I was always quite proud of doing that, but I also was under the impression that it made me stutter more while I was teaching. So this year, I did not do that. But in this journey of recognizing that I'm a covert stutterer and that I am a person that stutters, I'm so much of a convert stutter of a covert stutterer that I'm going to be honest with you that I think the first time that I've said out loud that I'm a person that stutters is right now. But yeah, I would just love to know. I know that Mandy talked specifically about disclosing in a non-apologetic way, which I really appreciate it. But just if you had any feedback on this idea of, disclosing in a non-apologetic way, I think of my students who are just always looking for a reason to, for all teachers, always looking for a reason to say that they're not doing a good job for this reason. And so obviously in the back of my head, I'm saying, oh, wow, they're meeting me on the first day and I'm saying I stutter, and then associating their thoughts with my value as a person. So yeah, just any kind of feedback on that would be really appreciated.
Well, first, Alex, I'm going to celebrate your first time tonight. I want to hold space for that. So, cheering you on. Congrats there. And I want to validate your feelings of what you just shared about, the whole thoughts and feelings around it. If I share that, first day, is it gonna set this tone where the students might think like I'm less than or, something like that. And that's so real. But I guess I invite you, and this is something that I wish someone told me a long time ago, is just it's being more just neutral about it. And it's just like other kids might share, or I just, how do I say this? I guess just making it, hey, I'm Mr. or I know you want to say Alex, but you may notice when I talk, I stutter sometimes. It might sound like this or that, and just give me a minute to say what I want to say, or give me extra time, or make it comical. I know some people say too, like, oh, after you stutter, oh, yep, you caught my stutter. If you feel like your students would resonate with that. But I feel like that invitation for vulnerability, if you set that tone, if you open up, I mean, especially I worked in high schools for a long time, and I think teenagers are also though wanting to be seeing themselves in other people, having, safe space to be themselves. So you open up that door for them, for that kind of environment. But I know it's a process to get through. I remember the first time I started unapologetically disclosing, I was like kind of bracing, okay, what is someone gonna say? Are they gonna laugh or are they gonna be like, huh? Are they? And really most of the time people are like, oh, thanks, I never knew. And then they move on. But it just, and then I was always surprised though what that invited people to do. It invited people to come up to me, hey, my brother stutters. Thanks for telling me. Or I used to stutter. Some people will say that to me. So I just feel like it's a connection point. And I think maybe if you, in your journey, maybe start to get more comfortable with that, I think you'd be surprised on how your students will react to it. So hope that helps. Okay.
Thank you, Alex, for sharing it, and thank you, Mandy. I don't think I knew that you had taught or that you were in high schools, and so that I think that having that experience and being able to share with Alex is really good. I'm going to open it up to John Moore. John, take it away.
Wow, I don't know if I can truly add to the conversation about disclosing your stutter, but I will try. So, Maddie, it's about selfless advocacy. You're not trying to advocate for you, you're trying to advocate for all of us. You're trying to educate someone who doesn't know about stuttering to help anyone and everyone who follows you so that they don't have to follow the pain, the guilt, the shame, and embarrassment you may have felt. That also goes for you, Alex. It's the same thing, telling folks, because so Alex, you are a teacher, you have power. You are someone your students look up to. By you telling them about you and a challenge you have, and they can better interpret you. I mean, there was so much there, and it's so less being personal and so much more global. We need you to help all of us educate everyone. When we look at trying to reduce the stigma of stuttering, a PSA ain't going to do it. A social media campaign ain't going to do it. What's going to do it is all of this: each one reach one, each one teach one. It's up to us individually to educate everyone else about how we talk so that they do not have the same stigma, and that others who follow us are given more opportunities, because more and more people understand, wait a minute, Alex is a cool dude. He's a teacher. Maddie, oh my goodness, she's awesome. Hey, yeah, she talks a little different, but who cares? It's her accent. It's Alex's accent. It's all good. There you go.
Thank you, John. Perfect.
One thing that I'll share about that too is, I've resonated a lot with what you said, Alex, where if I'm on stage in front of people and I know what I'm talking about, like I'm good. But if it's a smaller, more intimate group where I feel like the eyes are intimately and intently on me, I get way more nervous with that. And I've found that when I've been covert and when I've been trying my best to hide it, I find that I will talk in circles a lot more, and I'll just talk around what I'm trying to say. And in a conversation that might be fine, but if you're, say, in a meeting at work where getting to the point is important, I find if I disclose and I say what I want to say and I don't have to talk around it, people respect more hearing me stutter a little bit if I'm going to get to the point, as opposed to me trying to add all these words and go around here and say all this. I found that brevity and being concise is so important. And so I try to keep that in mind. I think that helps me as well when I'm like, okay, if I'm hiding, what are the true impacts of that? All right, I think Carmel was next, and then we'll go to Pam.
Hi, everyone. I'm joining you all from Cairns in North Queensland, Australia. So I'm really happy to be sharing this space with you all from such a long way. I identify as a covert stutterer. I'm in my late 50s. I want to apologize about not having a camera. So I really wanted to be able to use the camera, but it's not working on my laptop. So I'm sorry about that. I am a bit disappointed about that. That's okay. We'll proceed. I just wanted to share a little bit about my journey. I guess I just wanted to talk about how lonely my journey has been. I was born and I went to school in a small rural town, and I did not meet another person who stuttered until my late teens, and that was very isolating for me, a very lonely journey, because I felt like I couldn't talk to anybody about my stuttering and how it impacted me every day. But I'm very happy to say that that has changed now, and I have met so many people worldwide, and I really enjoy being a part of this community, this 1% community of people who relate to my experience. And I also like to be able to share my experience and my understanding with you guys. So thank you, Carl and Mandy, for setting this up. And I just wanted to talk about disclosure and my experience of that. As a covert stutterer all my life, I got really clever at hiding my stutter, to the point that people I worked with, and I'm a primary school teacher, people I had worked with for 10 or more years had no idea that I stuttered. And I find that hard to believe myself, but because, you know, it's such a big thing. And Carl, you spoke earlier about, you know, we think so much and we put so much emphasis on what other people will think of us, or what they will think of the way we speak, when you know, I think we make that a bigger thing in our mind than it really is. So as a covert stutterer and a person who could conceal my disfluency extremely well, I found it the most terrifying thing to actually utter the words, "I am a person who stutters." But I found it to be the most liberating thing as well, because it takes a lot of pressure off yourself to perform, I guess is a good word, to act or to appear like a person who doesn't stutter, where we put so much pressure on ourselves, and just to utter the words, "I am a person who stutters," it takes all that pressure away. You know, you've disclosed to your listener or listeners, this is how you speak, and you know, it really is the most liberating thing that I have done for myself. And I just really think it is so important to be true to ourselves. You know, the masking and the hiding and the pretending to be someone that we are not. You can't sustain that. And I think, John, your point, we really do need to show the world what stuttering looks like. We need to show the world what it sounds like. And we the people who stutter, need to do that. And this awareness, this increase in awareness, I think will ultimately make it easier for us as people who stutter, having to deal with people's reactions. I think we are the ones that need to do that. Yeah. So thanks for the giving me that time to share. Thanks, guys.
Oh, Carmel, thank you so much for sharing. And we're so glad that you joined us all the way from Australia, and we're so happy for you. And your comment out about, being a teenager and not meeting someone else until you were older. And I'm so glad you found your community, you found home. And like you're saying too, the liberation that is on the other side of all this hiding and survival, right? It's that authenticity, it's that connection with your students, with your friends, with strangers, and educating the community and better understanding of what stuttering is, what it sounds like, it looks like. Carmel, thank you so much for sharing and being here.
Yes.
Pam or Carl, sorry, did you want to say?
No. I was going to be the annoying person who puts a time limit or time pressure on people who stutter, which we all know is horrible. But we've got about a little bit more than 8 minutes left, but I want to be mindful of that. And we've got Pam, Alistair, and then I'll share a final slide with us before we wrap up. So Pam.
Yeah, I'll be quick too. I wanted to just share something about my high school experience. I worked at a vocational high school for like 12 years, and part of my job was to go around to the 12 high schools in my district and encourage high school students to consider taking courses like IT or welding or HVAC, consider taking those courses in their junior and senior years of high school, so that they would have, skills to enter directly into the employment market if they so wished. So I spent a good amount of time with high school students. So my thought is for Alex, high school students, they are no joke. And what I found was that when adults can be honest and upfront with high school kids about anything, they because they're so used to being lied to about, about, not really lied to, but like they're so used to like not having people share their honest and true selves with them. So that when an adult does, that really like does give them the freedom to share their own authenticity and their own issues. And I didn't really believe that until when I shared that I stuttered. I mean, I sometimes actually disclosed it, but usually I didn't have to. It was obvious, but I would say something about it. They were just like, wow, like, like they got it, because they didn't get that from many other adults in their lives. So I really felt like I had provided them something that they weren't used to getting from adults in other avenues of their lives. And I really felt like not special, but I felt like they were getting something that they didn't get anywhere else. And I was really surprised, like they locked in better, they paid more attention, they actually made eye contact with me when I was talking about the various options. One or two kids at some point in like my fifth presentation of a long day, one or two kids like began rolling their eyes or pointing or giggling, when I was really in like fifth presentation. I was tired, I was stuttering more. other kids told them to cut it out, and that's when I realized an impact had been made. So, I think when we can do that and make that kind of an impact on kids, but particularly high school kids, because like they're almost adults by that point, then we will have made a real difference, I think. And I didn't really have to do much except just be me, be real and authentic, and it made a big difference. So I just wanted to share that in general, but especially with Alex, because we know how high school students are. So that's my share.
Thank you, Pam. 110% agree with you. It's that authenticity that also sets that foundation for good relationship in the classroom, right? You're setting the tone, and that's the cornerstone of, teaching and having connection with your students to help them learn and grow. And oh, you're so right, because they see through it, right? They see through any bull crap,
Yep.
So, oh, Pam, thank you so much. Alex, you got this, man. We're here for you. You're great. Your students are gonna love you no matter what. Maybe if you give them extra homework, they're not gonna like you, but
All right, we got one more person. We've got Alistair is going to give us a remark, and then we'll go ahead and close it out for the evening.
Yeah, it was, I mean, thank you all for sharing. And this is on my first time being here, and I just wanted to put myself out here and to just, hear people listen. And then, yeah, so thank you all. I just wanted to mainly talk about shame. I have shame about my stuttering, not so much about me feeling shame for me, but for what people think stuttering is. I feel like people know what stuttering is, but they don't really know what that looks like. I have I don't really have much shame for myself. The shame that I have is that people might know, sure, but they don't know what my stuttering looks like. Sometimes for me, stuttering is not saying thank you. Sometimes stuttering makes me seem rude. Sometimes stuttering makes me seem socially awkward too. That's the stuff that they don't really think about, like to them, when they hear that somebody stutters, that's just them stuttering. Just these secondary things that they don't consciously think about too. And I think that makes them think about me in a different light. Some people might not think I'm a, a kind person. I might be like shy or socially awkward. And it's like, just the fact that there's that disconnect, I feel like it skews, and it makes me further detached from stuttering. But like, go for myself at least, just like my friends and family, they're like they keep me grounded. They make me stay close to my foundation as a person. I feel content with being a person that stutters because deep down I know my values. So it's like, in that sense, there's not much shame. But yeah, that's, again, thank you all for sharing. And that's all I wanted to put out. But yeah.
Thank you, Alistair. That's that I put it in the chat. I don't think we've discussed that as a topic before, and I know that the NSA is always kind of looking for new topics and kind of points of view that we haven't discussed. So that is something I'd love to see discussed in the future. So thank you for that. I'm going to share one last slide, and it is our kind of our slide to say thank you all for being here with us tonight. I know for those of you on the East Coast, it is getting kind of late. So appreciate you all for joining and for making time for us and being a part of this conversation. If you have any questions or kind of want to continue the conversation, here is our contact information here. So I've got both. So I've got both me and Mandy's email addresses here. And then this is another comic from the Just Stutter account. It is run by a person whose name is Wilhelm, I believe is her name, Mandy.
Willamine. Uh-huh.
Wil-
Willamine.
Willamine. But yeah, she has some great comics that I feel like are really relatable and kind of speak to the stuttering experience very well. And I just think this one was a really cool way to close it out. You know, I knew I would stutter, but I still said what I wanted to say. And I think when we get to that point of just being like, you know what, I say what I want to say, no matter how it comes out. I think that's a really cool place to be. So I am going to stop talking because I can be very awkward and continue to ramble. I'm gonna turn it over to Mandy to see if she has any closing words for us.
Well, I just think how precious this space is. And I just really want to thank you all for being here, for sharing in your story and sharing this community, growing this community. If it's your first time or your 100th time, please come back, keep coming back. You're not alone. As NSA, as we say, you're not alone. We do have these NSA Connect meets often, a couple times a month, all kinds of different topics. Carmel, so I highly recommend checking it out. Our website, even if you'd like to join the annual conference, I highly recommend that as well. That's coming up here in July. It's out in Denver, Colorado this year. But you can always come back to the NSA Connect site and join a monthly meet too in the meantime. But feel free to email me. I loved meeting you all, and I love seeing myself in other people too. So it means a lot. And thank you, Pam, for co-hosting as well. And Carl, my amazing co-host. It was so cool to collaborate with you, but hope to see you all again out there in the community.